All right, thank you everyone for joining today's webinar. I'm Hillary Pennington. I am the interim marketing director, customer marketing director, while Kristen Bly is on maternity leave. So if I don't know you, very happy to have you here today. Thank you for taking the time to join us. And with that, we will jump right into the slides. The webinar is scheduled to last an hour. We'll have opening insights from Dr. Julian Allen, Vice President of Academic Affairs at Labster. And he'll be exploring how AI disruption is revolutionizing education and how customized learning not only fosters equity, but also addresses challenges like ethical concerns and academic integrity. Next, we'll dive into innovations in education. JJ, our dedicated product manager, will uncover the real stories behind the creation of our new customized quiz editor. Driven by the demands of educators like yourself in a changing landscape, we'll explore the opportunities this opens up for you. Then we'll jump into a deep dive to hear real stories and real impact. Bonnie Nieves, founder of Educate on Purpose and also a high school science teacher at Nipmuc Regional High School in Massachusetts. And Eddy van Hunnik, Bioscience and Biotechnology Instructor at Alamance Community College, will discuss how they're using Labster's customized quiz editor to transform teaching and to match learners' needs to tackle knowledge gaps head on. And finally, we'll close out by pulling back the curtain and taking a look ahead to the future, where Mark Fuller, our Director of Product, will join us to share exciting Labster updates and our next steps in the journey to empower educators and learners alike. First, before we jump into the main event, I just want to go through a couple housekeeping items. So Q&A, we have the Q&A section here in Zoom, so please feel free to ask questions throughout. You can also upvote other questions if you also are interested in it. That way we'll be able to prioritize which questions to address first. Also, this webinar is being recorded and we will be sending it out following the webinar. So you can watch or share as you see fit. And then please send any questions to following the webinar to vwspicer@labster.com. The recording will also be coming from that email address, so you can simply respond to that and we'll be sure to answer any questions you have or connect you with the right person. So without further ado, I'd like to, on stage we have Dr. Julian Allen. Julian is Labster's new Vice President of Academic Affairs. He brings over 25 years of leadership experience and expertise in scaling learning technology deployments, assisting faculty in learning tool adoptions, and also implementing measurement of success. His most recent role before joining Labster was serving as the inaugural Chief Learning Innovations Officer at Georgia State University, where he also taught a course in instructional technology leadership. Julian's new role at Labster is a pivotal addition to our leadership team and underscores Labster's unyielding commitment to understanding our customers' learning tool adoption journey, especially in the areas of efficacy and equity. So a very warm welcome to Julian. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hillary, thank you. And thank you all for taking time out of your very busy day to join us. So I'm just going to share a few of my thoughts on what I've seen happening in the world of higher ed, especially as it relates to artificial intelligence and customized learning. And I know we've got a lot of opinions on every side of this. So we really do welcome your Q&A toward the end. I look forward to seeing what your thoughts are as well. So before we dive into a conversation of the latest and greatest in AI technologies, I actually want to kind of take us back, way back a few hundred years, really before the modern era of universities were set up, so that we can have a bit of a backdrop for our conversation. You know, many moons ago, those lucky enough to get a formal education or develop a trade skill were often matched with a residential scholar or a master craftsman, where they could learn through experience. Through a series of successes and failures, they got a chance to embrace their new practice. If they were lucky, using their intelligence and their talents, and they could probably maybe find a way to even exceed what their mentor was encouraging them to study, maybe developing new lines of thoughts, new inquiries, new methods, maybe even new art forms. But that method of teaching has gone by the wayside for the most part. Fast forward to the early and mid 20th centuries, when growing populations and a post-war economy demanded that more and more people have the skill sets to take on, your 9-to-5 jobs and contribute to society. And we designed a new model of education really to respond to that. And we accomplished a lot. If you look at just the growth of higher education over the past century, the way we take on student learning at mass scales, like bringing in such a high percentage of the citizenry into this process, it's really something to marvel at. We've really accomplished a lot. But sometimes I wonder if maybe we've lost a little bit of ourselves in that process as well. So we created a one-size-fits-all model designed not around the advancement of an individual's skills, but instead by defining a global norm and measuring success, not on that individual student and where they want to go and what they want to accomplish and what's going to matter to them, but based on an average of all students and what we think they should know and what they should be able to achieve. Over the past few years, we've kind of taken some new steps, bringing back personalized learning. And I'm sure you're familiar with different ways of embracing active learning, adaptive learning, and more recently looking at culturally responsive and equity-based pedagogies. And I really do think these new techniques and new capabilities are certainly pushing us in the right direction. But now we have the potential right at our hands to embrace a whole new set of capabilities through artificial intelligence that can help us really once again, realign as educators toward our efforts to really focus on the individual student, or at least as a start to customize our educational efforts toward the groups of students, like within a unique university population, within a campus, or even within a course. So that brings us to today. ChatGPT and Midjourney and Claude and DALL-E 2 and even more traditional tools like Google Docs and Photoshop are really re-engaging us in new ways with artificial intelligence and asking us to rethink our daily tasks through that use of artificial intelligence. They're driving our students to rethink, what skills do I need to learn for my new career that I'm going to be taking on? What skills do I need to be a good citizen? What do I want to learn in the classes that I have? And these new tools are certainly prompting us as educators to rethink, how do we want to embrace how we teach? What's really exciting about this inflection point for me is that instructors are really beginning to rethink their own and their students' relationships to content, to assignments, to assessments, and beginning to engage new types of creativity. I thought I'd share a couple of examples that I've run across recently. One of the instructors at my recent institution, an instructor of film production and set design, came up with an assignment where she asked her students to use Midjourney. If you're familiar with it, it's one of those visual AI tools where through text you describe an environment and it can create, incredible new versions of that environment, and you can tweak it over time. They use Midjourney to design and create a film set and also all the gear they would need to light it properly. Students can then take the output of what Midjourney comes up with and start using it in a CAD program to design really a, kind of a physical manifestation of what the AI created on their behalf with their consultation. And then finally, take those CAD files and put them over into the 3D printers to create, those really unique lighting designs that before would have been almost impossible to imagine and come up with. Think for a moment about a student leaving an institution with this skill set in hand as they try to take on, the new adventures of their career in film production. It's a big deal here. I'm in Atlanta, and it's one of the big driving careers. And so, it's a way to really embrace the promise of what AI has to offer, to really put real skills in the hands of students. And on the terms of each student kind of gets to go in, in their own way and think about this. Another instructor I was recently talking with kind of had a different situation going on. She had been using an AI to generate a whole new bank of test questions for her course in educational research and educational philosophy. So she'd experimented with creating, this whole new bank of quizzes, and she was prompted one night in a conversation with her high school son, who she found out was using ChatGPT to answer his homework questions. She immediately questioned him, is that something you should be doing? Isn't this a learning process? Isn't this something you should be doing on your own? And he immediately turned it right back around to her. I know that you use it to create test questions. What's the difference in you using it to create questions and me using it to create answers? Aren't we both embracing this new technology to find our way through the world and do our work? I'm not going to pass judgment today on who's right and who's wrong in this conversation, but I do know that this is an important struggle that we all need to be taking on and contemplating, what the role of AI is going to be in the coming months and years in higher education. But this idea really brings me to what I think is the biggest potential that I see right now in higher ed using AI: the opportunity to mass customize learning for individual students. Mentioned at the top of the conversation, the model of the scholar and the apprentice, or the master craftsman and the apprentice. I think we all know that, financial limitations would never really allow us at the undergraduate level to return to that model in mass. It's just too expensive. But what if we could lean on tools, lean on an environment that can learn about who we are as an instructor and learn about who our students are as learners and where they are on their learning journey, and really help bridge that gap, meeting each student exactly where they are. Imagine, if you can, just for a moment, the ability to truly devise a learning plan that helps each student understand where they should go next, where to experiment more, where to go both when they succeed and when they fail. I'm the first to recognize that we've kind of heard this message before with adaptive learning and kind of active learning principles. And I know that the panacea is not here yet. But I think there's going to be a wonderful and vigorous debate on exactly where these new teaching and learning models will take us and what they should look like. And I'm really glad that Labster is playing a role in that. In its early stages, AI is generating just as much concern as it is in generating excitement. And we're all right. We are right to be concerned about measuring student success and measuring student assessments. We know that they can drop our questions into ChatGPT and come back with a variety of answers. We are right to question kind of how that model is going to work and serve us well. I even kind of fear like this crazy dystopia where AIs are writing all the questions and the students are using AIs to write all the answers, and then the teachers are again using AIs to assess their answers. And I think at some point these AIs are just going to gang up on us and decide they don't really need us as a part of the learning process, and they'll just optimize their questions and answers for each other. But in the meantime, I think there's some real serious work we can be doing to help make sure that each of our students continues to get the most out of their educational journey. And recognize that AI and other forms of customized learning are really bringing us closer to fulfilling our mission of helping each student meet their learning goals. At Labster, one of the most commonly requested new features has been the ability to customize quiz questions throughout our simulations, so that the lab experience can be more directly related to the specific group of students engaged at your university, engaged in your course. And we're happy to announce today that we are now offering fully customizable quizzes, allowing each instructor to modify our existing quizzes as they come across them, creating new questions and answers within the existing quiz structure, or also creating new sets of questions. this can be a really powerful tool if you're recognizing that the original premise of the simulation and assessment isn't quite up to the level of where your students are, or maybe vice versa. It's a little bit advanced beyond their current capabilities. You can customize the experience for them to help them really succeed on in their own direction. So we're really glad that each of you joined us. It's really important that we get your feedback, because that's where the future of Labster comes from. It's what helps us define, what the next version of immersive STEM and healthcare education is going to look like with you, our partners. So with that, I'm going to invite Hillary to come back and introduce the next section of today's chat, where we'll learn more about the capabilities of our customizable quizzes. And I really look forward to the Q&A at the end of our section, so we can learn really how you might be thinking about using these capabilities in your own course.
Thank you, Julian. I know I speak for all of Labster in saying that we're thrilled to have you on the leadership team and your expertise leading the future of Labster. So.
Thank you. It's so great to be here.
For those of us joining today, AI, as you'll see, is a theme interwoven into all of today's sessions. Labster is focusing on AI and how we can leverage it in our offerings to better support educators and students. I would like to re-emphasize what Julian said in taking this opportunity to underscore that we are always welcome your ideas and suggestions. So please do share them, whether in the chat today or as they come to mind following the webinar. You can always reach out to us. And very fittingly, our next speaker, JJ, Labster's product manager, was unable to attend live today since he's on his way to a product workshop to help strategize how to most effectively leverage AI to support our educators and students. I believe he is on chat though in Zurich Airport, so he can answer any questions that we might not be able to on our end. So with that, he recorded a brief 5-minute video speaking to our new customized editor and the creation of it. So I will pass that. We can start that now. Thank you.
I'm really excited to talk about the new customized quiz editor feature, because this is something that we are considering introducing in Labster for a very long time. At Labster, we are deeply committed to addressing the evolving needs of educators and students in this rapidly changing educational landscape. And we also recognize the trend of making learning more personalized, because this is exactly what helps students reach their learning objectives more effectively. When talking to our customers, we kept hearing that while educators appreciate and enjoy Labster simulations and the different quizzes that come with them, sometimes they just want to change things up a little. And we kept hearing that educators would like to maybe change the difficulty level of their quiz questions or add additional questions so they can cover their subject even more effectively. Hearing this feedback led us to think, how can we make it very easy for instructors to customize and edit quiz questions themselves? And that led us to building the new customized quiz editor feature that we're presenting here today. First of all, it allowed educators to cater to the different abilities in their classroom a lot better. You can simplify language for non-native speakers or add more difficult questions for advanced learners. The customized quiz editor also allows you to drill down on a particular subject matter to address common misconceptions or something important to particular learning outcomes. We also recognize that there's always students that are just trying to take an easy way out, so the customized quiz editor reduces the risk of students cheating. At Labster, we're already taking this seriously, so we'll always rotate the answers to our quiz questions, and we constantly monitor the internet to make sure that no one is sharing the answers to Labster quiz questions publicly. However, the introduction of customized quiz editor makes it even easier for instructors to change the quiz questions in their courses, so they always stay fresh and new, and the risk of students cheating gets even lower. We also hope that the educators will appreciate the automated grading. All the customized quizzes get grades automatically assigned, so you don't need to worry about spending time to review them. We also sync the grades directly to your learning management system, so the new feature can be a huge time saver. First of all, we recommend to check with your administrator and let them know that you're planning to use the feature to make sure that there's no problems in the future. This is mainly to ensure that grading remains fair across departments and nothing unexpected happens. Also keep in mind that different students in your classroom might have different learning needs and abilities, so when creating or amending quiz questions, keep accessibility in mind and try to make sure that different students in your classroom can understand and follow the questions really easily. And we also know that professors are always busy, so we made sure that co-instructors also have access to your quizzes. So it's a great way to collaborate and delegate so you can focus on the things that are the most important. We want to make sure that understanding and starting to use the new feature is easy and seamless. So we created multiple different user guides and support articles that you can read and really understand what the feature is about. But never hesitate to reach out to your account manager or customer success manager in Labster. They're always here to help you and answer any questions that you might have. We're also really interested in hearing your feedback about this new feature, so you can also reach out to the product marketing team at Labster and let us know how you're finding the feature, any feedback that you might have, and any surprising outcomes that you find when using it. And in case you don't know yet, Labster has their online community campus where you can discuss all things related to Labster with other educators. Let them know how you're using the tool or get inspired by other professors in the community. Labster is committed to introducing new ways of making the learning experience even more personalized, and we already have ideas on our product roadmap that will make the customized quiz editor even better in the future. We recognize that coming up with good questions can be difficult, so in the future we are considering to introduce a quiz question bank and make it even easier to share the edited quizzes between different courses or educators.
Great. I know Labster's most valued features is automatic grading and how much time it takes to save instructors. So one question, Julian, I'm not sure if you know, but is whether customized quiz questions can still be automatically graded.
So yeah, absolutely. One of the main tenets of introducing a new feature is making sure you can continue in the way in which you're comfortable using the automatic grading feature. So we can be assured that your existing questions that were already in Labster are going to be graded. Your modified questions, if you just go in and switch up some of the wording on an existing question, that's going to be automatically graded as well, with your indication of what the answer is, as well as any new questions you develop. So this really gives you a chance to go back and think about, well, what was the learning experience like in the classroom this week? Are there some really special moments that I want to emphasize this week with this group of students, and add those questions in, knowing that it will be part of the graded process. So it not only expands, that kind of capability of keeping up with students where they are, and where they are in, the educational process, but it can also continue to help deter academic dishonesty by you reframing questions based on the actual in-class experiences as opposed to what someone might, Google on the web.
Yeah, and I know that's always a huge concern for instructors. And I just want to emphasize this was a highly requested feature that our product team had prioritized. So really excited to see this out live. All right. So I'm excited for our next segment where we get to hear from 2 Labster customers on their use of customized quiz editor. We'll get perspectives from both high school and higher ed level instructors And it is a bit more of a deep dive. So the recording is 20 minutes, just as a heads up. You will see you back here after the recording. Enjoy.
So I've been teaching now since 2004, something like that. I've been starting teaching that time ago, so it's a while already. I started first with in classes only, and then we slowly had to go online. And I've been in several different schools. I started up in Massachusetts, now I'm in North Carolina. I'm now full-time biotechnology faculty at Alamance Community College.
My teaching experience goes back about, I would say, 15 years. I started in a bit of a different path. I was a long-term sub in actually an English class and found that I really loved connecting with students and helping them learn. So I took a position in special education and got to work one-on-one with students. That was an invaluable experience. Then finally found my forever job as a high school life science teacher.
Well, there are numerous challenges. First of all, we had the people that took high school during the pandemic. So they basically lost a year and a half to 2 years. And we noticed that when they come into our schools, they are not completely prepared for a lot of things. Then we have the, like I like to call them, the squirrel population. So this is basically people who go like, ooh, distracted, ooh, distracted, ooh, distraction. So the squirrel population. And that's another problem that we're dealing with. So they don't seem to be keeping their attention too long. And it's hard for them to do the work that they're supposed to be doing. Then we have the budget cuts that are happening now every day, all the time. So we want to get more students in, but for spending less money. So real life labs are a little bit underfunded. So that's why we need to have something like Labster in place to compensate for the loss that we're having. And one of the most important things that I see happening these days, students don't want to be in the classroom anymore. Many students, it's just like work, they want to do remote work, they want to do remote learning. And for my field, I'm biotechnology and do a lot of biology classes. It's hard because we need lab work. We depend on people actually knowing some lab work. So that is a problem when they don't come in and do the labs in person. We tried some of these labs that you send home in a box. I actually used to work for a company designing them, but then they're just not the depth that we want. We don't have the quality that's needed. So we needed something that actually compensates for the lack of in-person labs, and that's where Labster came in.
Right now, as a science teacher, I would say it's finding resources for the classroom. There's so much that science teachers want to do, and that could be modeling, could be project-based learning, and performing and conducting labs with students. So we've got the resources that we can't always get our hands on, and sometimes these things just aren't safe, right? And with as much as I don't like to say it's because of that COVID gap that we have had, but there are a lot of skills that the kids that are coming up in high school right now, at least, are behind with. And just those interpersonal interactions is something to consider. And so being able to safely conduct labs is a huge consideration for me right now. Then there's also the general attention span of students right now and building their stamina to be able to acquire information. So even if I stand in front of a class and talk for 15 minutes, that doesn't mean they have gotten 15 minutes worth of information. So I found really chunking work in very deliberate ways has been a huge advantage for this decrease in focus for just students in general.
Well, when I think about it, I have biotechnology classes. I also teach environmental classes, and I teach people who are dental assistants. Lots of them can use the same simulations. For instance, when I talk about lipids, I can use the same simulation for each. But the people who go into biotechnology need to learn something different than the people who go into the basic A&P. And the people who are in environmental don't care about all what happens in humans. They want to know what happens in the environment. So personalization in that case is very important, because I can tailor the questions now towards what the students are actually wanting, what they need to learn, instead of having a general one. And then you have some choices, but still you have general questions that might not be applicable for the field that you're in at that point. And I'm used to lipids as example because that was actually the first one I played around with creating these custom questions, because a lot of these lipid simulations that you had were chemistry based, not nutrition based, and I needed for a nutrition course. So I went around and basically took some of the information that I teach in my virtual classes, put them in the questions, and now it works much better. The students learn much better.
It all started when I was in high school myself, and was just what I remember feeling is just lectured at from one class to the next. And the one class that really got my attention was biology, and it was because I was able to use my hands to figure things out. Even though they were most likely cookie cutter labs and everyone was doing the exact same thing, I just remember feeling different and feeling like I could stand up and do things and talk to people without having to be confined to a seat, really. And when I went to work in special education, what I found then is that there is groups of students who have individualized education programs that get their instruction personalized to them. And it made me wonder, why can't we just do this for all students? And I mean, the number one barrier for everything in education is time. But over years of iterations, what I have found is that getting to know students' interest, number one, and then taking the time to think back just into my schema, all of the experiences that I've had, all the lessons that I've taught that didn't go so well, may go well for this one student. So it may be worth giving, if I have 25 kids in my class, there are 25 options for things to do, and allowing students, empowering students to choose their particular topic, as long as it all falls under the same umbrella that the class is studying.
Yeah, so when you companies like you are creating questions, you need to try and have a broad base. So you cannot make them too specialized, you cannot make them too specific. And when I'm looking, and I'm taking biotechnology as example again, when you're looking at some of the storage chemicals that we are using, I want them to know specifically what they do in a microbe, what they do in a fungi, what they do in any other cell or in a hamster cell that we're using. So there are three different organisms there. We have a eukaryote organism, an animal organism, we got a eukaryote fungi, and then we got a prokaryote. So all of them are different chemical pathways. And that's important to remember, that there are different chemical pathways using different ways of using the same material. So when you have a generic question, it can be really good for the hamster cells, but it can be completely useless for a fungi question. So having the ability to twist them around, change them, allows me to use the same simulation in different classes, yet add different questions to it. So we can actually focus on what I'm teaching in my lectures and focus on what their students are using as hands-on, because most of the time I'm using Labster as a pre-lab. So they have the idea behind it already. So they get the idea already, and then they can apply it immediately during their classes. They can understand why they need to do a specific test, why they do a specific protein to look for, just by changing the questions in the question bank.
I was honestly so excited when I saw that, because Labster helps me to decrease the barriers of safety and the availability of supplies. So the only thing that it really wasn't able to do previously was personalize, which still I could do afterwards. But now this personalized quiz editor is perfect because I can change the questions for particular students that would relate to a project that they're doing or an interest that they have. And even though I wouldn't want to do it for like 25 students, 25 different versions of questions, being able to just change them a little bit means that eventually, when their students are all finished, they can compare their answers. So it would work like a jigsaw, right? Where students who had the same answers and the same questions would then split into groups, and they'd be able to compare their answers and figure out why I would have asked that question in a different way to them. And it will just give a deeper meaning to the work that they were doing and give them a reason to work together, even though they're not working on the same project.
Oh, one of the things that is very important is when you think about different levels. Like sometimes I have high school students in my classes. So we teach a lot with the high school, their pre-collegial academy, and they're coming into my classes. They might not have had all the background that a college student has. So now I can still use the college level simulation, but basically make the questions more applicable to a high school setting. I don't want to say dumb it down, but basically make it so that they understand it more easily, because they might not have the technical background, the knowledge, the terms that my other students have. And now I can change it around, keep the same questions, but change the wording in such a way that they understand it more easily. And that helps them succeed. And that's just the point. All of this will help students succeed in their courses. Because a lot of times what you see, if you have quizzes and you make them too hard, or they don't understand the words, they get discouraged, and then they don't do well on the next one, they get discouraged even more, and then at a certain point they just drop. And that's not what we're looking for. I'm at a community college. We have a lot of first generation students in there. We got a lot of people who don't speak English that well, and I still want them to succeed. I still want them to get there, because that's why I'm teaching there, is to get them out of their situation that they're in now and be successful in their careers, and build a career that they can help, and then show the rest of the community, I could do it, so can you. And having these questions like that is helpful. One of the things that I'm planning on using, I haven't used it yet, is maybe change the language on the questions. Working with that a little bit. So that might make it more applicable, because your simulations already can be played in different languages. So why not sometimes put questions in there and then have the English version and then put a Spanish version right below it? So that is another thing that I'm thinking of doing, and not there yet. That might be at the end of the term that I'm ready for that, but I'm just thinking about how to get the students to succeed.
I think the first thing is going to be decreasing cheating, right? Even though Labster is really good at keeping their answer keys from getting out to anyone or anything, but there's always that consideration for most teachers if you ask them. And the other thing is being able to meet the accommodations and the differentiation for those individualized education programs where students need either fewer options or shortened options. So where the questions are really expertly written as they are, but if you needed to decrease the reading level of the question, then you could do that and meet the accommodations for that student. And the importance of that is that you can still evaluate the student's knowledge, and more importantly, you can evaluate that student's knowledge of science without the barrier to their ability to read what they're looking at.
We're going to have much more sort of on-demand teaching, I will see. So not the structure like when I used to go to college, you know, when dinosaurs roamed the world, it was you had to sit in class, be quiet and listen, and then do a lab and do the same thing, just listen. What I see more is now this micro-credentialing coming up. So basically, instead of taking the entire degree in one go, you take little pieces. So you take a few courses here and there, and you take them at your own time. So a lot of it is going to be on-demand teaching, a lot of them are going to be online teaching, and then the labs, you have to be in the lab for, especially my field for biotech. But I see that happening, and we talk about that in my college already, how to integrate a lot of these micro-credentials. They're stackable, so that when you have enough, you get your degree out of that. And that's what I see the future of education is going to be like.
My hope is that all of this technology will help us to personalize education even further, where we're not only meeting the interests of students, but also the really particular needs of students, and perhaps even the ones that we don't know about yet, which is really interesting to think about if we use AI in our assessment and evaluation and planning. The AI is definitely able to work faster and sometimes with more precision than we are. So I think that will be an amazing thing that will help students learn exponentially faster. Right? I think back to my lesson that I used to give in biology when I taught strictly biology on the invention of the microscope, and how there are so many things that eventually would have happened. We eventually would have found antibiotics. We would have been able to do that. But because we had the technology, it happened much sooner than it would have accidentally. And I think this AI moment that we're in is really important for us to take advantage of this giant step that we may be able to make in equity and inclusion and personalization for students.
It's always great to hear from instructors using Labster in their courses. And these insights are very, very exciting. Bonnie said something to me that really stood out. Just because you've lectured in your class for 15 minutes doesn't mean they've consumed 15 minutes of learning. I think we can all relate to that from our days as students.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Hillary. Thinking about like one of the the best processes we have as educators of kind of checking in on our students, this low stakes testing, common low stakes testing, figuring out where our students are and letting them tell us, right? You've presented them with all this content, and it's really great to frequently hear from them in a way that maybe won't too much affect their grade, exactly where they are. And it's got me excited that now, you can kind of double down on that, figuring out where the students are compared to the content you've presented in the classroom, in addition to what's happening in the Labster environment, and really create that customizable experience for the student from top to bottom.
Right. Yeah, and I also like the way that Eddy pointed out that now, excuse me, now he can use the same simulation in different courses and sections just because he can now adapt the assessment.
Yeah, absolutely. As I'm sure many of us have attended those classes in college when there's both undergrads and grads in there, or maybe it's undergrads and high school students. And it's really great when the instructor can, create the environment where they're presenting all this content pretty uniformly, but checking in with the different students on their own pace. So, one of the nice things about this is that by meeting each student where they are, meeting the groups of students where they are, you really have an opportunity to continue to encourage them to, invest in their STEM adventure, if you will, because it can seem so much more relevant to the student, if they're kind of asked questions based on the actual environment that they're experiencing right then.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, moving on to our final session of the webinar, world premiere. So Mark Fuller is joining us. He's the Director of Product here at Labster, and he's going to provide some closing insights and give you a sneak peek into the product roadmap at Labster. So welcome, Mark.
All right, thank you so much, Hillary and Julian and everyone else. I would say I'm one of the product directors at Labster. But yeah, we're excited to just give you maybe a very brief preview of what we're working on in the product team and our overall product strategy. So in terms of what we're thinking about for 2024 and 2025 is we're trying to broaden our horizons a little bit in Labster's new product strategy. We have some very big plans, and both in terms of trying to make some short-term improvements to our simulations and our platforms and making them easier to use, but we're also trying to dream a little bit bigger. And I think that's the reason for some of our conversations here today about AI, about the future of learning tools, about how we can harness some of these technologies to create more personalized learning experiences. So what I would say we're trying to do right now is laser focus on the challenges that you're actually facing, right? At the institutional level, at the department level, down to the program or the course or the individual student or even individual lesson level, trying to really help you solve problems. And part of that is partnering more closely. Last week, we had our first product governance board meeting with an excellent group of educators and administrators from across, across the broad spectrum of institutions that we work with. And we heard some really interesting ideas, questions, challenges from that group. Whether it's in there, the community campus, speaking with you directly, you speaking with your Labster representative, we want to hear from you to help make this plan even better. So on the next slide, we just show at the highest level, when we're talking about an updated or refreshed product strategy from Labster, maybe a more aggressive one, is we're trying to focus in these three general areas, right? The first is, of course, trying to make STEM and healthcare education more equitable and more accessible, right? We want to give more students the opportunity to succeed. The second is to make our learning experiences more immersive and more personalized. Right? Not just something out of the box necessarily, but something that really works for that student or that course. And then, of course, trying to empower faculty and administrators and all of you to more easily do what you do best, essentially. So this is a high-level view. If we look at our roadmap here, this is quite high level for the sort of late 2023 and then into 2024. But what are we focusing on here? Well, the overall theme, I think, is trying to, again, empower leaders and educators to get more out of our tools. So customization, we've talked about a bunch today with a new quiz editing tool and that option, but also future features and future iterations of that quiz editor tool. We're continuing to invest in accessibility. Of course, we're working on improving our supplements, those simulation, those lab supplements to make them easier to access, improve them a little bit, upgrade them. And I think very important for a moment to pause on is we're working on a big content expansion, right? To get back a little bit to what we do best at Labster, to expand the number of simulations and learning content that we have in a really smart way. So starting in spring of 2024 and then moving on from there, we've essentially rebuilt our entire simulation platform to make simulations higher quality, faster, shorter and more targeted in some cases, but more effective in general, right? So you'll see new topic areas, new packages coming out. We're going to be investing at first in chemistry, in those kind of introductory level chemistry and biology gateway courses, but we'll be expanding out from there. We're also looking at deeper partnerships, not just with you and your institutions, but integrations with LMS systems. We've recently launched a new option for Canvas users, for those who use the Canvas LMS, to use an API integration, just making the experience a little bit smoother and a little bit better. And for new tools and technologies, Julian was talking a lot about this, but we're investigating ways to help harness these new technologies that are out there, whether it's AI or something else, to create experiences that are better for you and your colleagues and your students. And then the last one I want to talk about is the administrator dashboard and administrator reporting. This is another, along with quiz editing and customization, this is another big one for us in 2023 and something that we're really excited to roll out. So what we've done is to create an administrator dashboard, right? And this is something for whether you're a provost or a dean or department head or some other kind of director, or even if you just lead your institution's kind of multi-instructor implementation of Labster, we've created a tool where you can see the broader impact of Labster across your program or department or institution, right? So this is something that's been requested, again, for a long time. So we're very excited to be launching this next week. So starting in October, this feature will be available to key administrators and contacts at particular accounts. And you'll basically be able to see everything from simulation usage across courses and across students to the actual specific simulations played, the average scores among students. So what is the impact and what is the usage, right? To help you all make better decisions and help administrators make better decisions about Labster within an entire group of courses using it. So, and of course, this is not about looking at faculty use specifically per se, but it's understanding where and how Labster is being used across courses, and how we can best make an impact with your students. So if you're interested in this, we'll have more information coming out. This will be released beginning next week, but you can also reach out to your Labster representative or one of us even, and we can talk more about the new administrator dashboard and the impact we think that'll have. And finally, just very quickly, I'll touch on, many of you probably already know, but Labster also has a nursing education virtual reality solution called UBISIM. And on the UBISIM front, we are investing in a lot of new exciting areas for nursing programs, whether that's new scenarios, the ability to have a high acuity but low frequency or low incidence kind of hospital room situations occurring for people a little bit more often, new customization features, and our great editor tool that UBISIM has available, where nursing educators can craft exactly what they want to happen in the room with patients. And then more in terms of more in analytics and reporting, as we're doing with Labster as well, and data privacy. So some really exciting short and long-term investments that we're making. But this is also just a call to all of you to please respond to our questions and calls to action in the community campus. Engage with us. Let us know what you need and what you want. And we're absolutely very interested in sitting down with you, hearing more, and making sure that it gets onto that roadmap and that it gets into your hands. So that's it.
Great, very exciting. And I know I had posed a question to the community campus of what features that were on the product roadmap folks were most excited about, and administrator dashboard kept coming up over and over. So excited to see this coming out next week, and great work to the all product team for developing it. Okay, and with that, I think we are on to the Q&A session, and apologies, the chat has been disabled in this webinar, but there is the Q&A section, so please take some time to input any questions you may have. I see that there's a couple already. Julian, I might invite you on stage too, just in case you want to speak to any of this as well. And also, before we jump into Q&A, I do want to say we will be following up. JJ mentioned a user guide in his video recording, and we'll include that in the follow-up email. And Bonnie also published a blog article with us today, and so we'll provide a link to that. And last but very not least, I want to thank Dr. Eddy van Hunnik for joining us today. He's live on the webinar. So thank you so much for taking the time to share your thoughts on the customized quiz editor. We really appreciate your support there. All right, so jumping into Q&A, one question we got in follow-up, I believe, to my initial question to Julian, it was to clarify, is this customized quiz editor available to use as a classroom tool, non-graded, in addition to the automatic grading feature on it? Mark.
So, yeah, I think Mark might maybe could be the best one to really jump in on this quick.
Yeah, I can jump in. And the short answer is absolutely 100%, right? I think what we try to do are to create tools and solutions that can be used in different ways, right? Because even within a particular department or institution, two instructors may approach subject matter or the course in general a little bit differently, right? So 100%, Labster does have a system of automatically grading or let's say scoring rather, the quiz questions throughout each simulation, but it's really often intended more as a formative assessment, right? And so absolutely can give you an indication of how students are, perhaps where they're struggling or how they're moving through the simulations, but there's in no way a requirement for that to be actually graded or to factor in to the students' grades in the course. So it can be used in different ways. It will be tracked in terms of the recorded answers that the students are able to do. But of course, Labster is also a mastery-based solution, right? The answers are right there in the theory pages, in the lab, in the simulation. So our intention is for them to actually get everything right before the end. So the short answer is yes, in terms of your ability to grade or not grade.
Yeah, thank you. The next question is there a way from a program administrator standpoint where they can lock the editor so faculty can't change it because of how we have our course designed?
Yeah, so I will say that the first version of the quiz editor tool is what is live today, and it's only going to go up from here. We don't currently have this sort of locking mechanism built in to our systems. Of course, this can be shared with your colleagues, other faculty, other teachers, and asking them not to use it, and you can kind of easily see which version of a simulation was used. But at this point, it would have to be more of like outside of the technology that request to be made. At the moment, it is technically available to everybody, but this is on the roadmap for us to investigate whether or not we might be able to add a feature like this in the future. So this is very helpful, though, to hear it asked for again here. So I know JJ's listening in, and he and I will have a conversation after the fact about that. But at the moment, it's not there quite yet.
Yes, and again, please share all of your thoughts and wish list with us, because we really do take everybody's requests into consideration in developing the product. So, all right, and again, to follow up, do you have a guide to share with faculty on how to use these quizzes that are non-graded, or are the instructions within the guide shared? I know that we were able to share the link to the guide within the chat. I'm not sure if that was a part of the guide.
Yeah, and I think that in this case, the user guide will provide some overall recommendations and kind of a how-to for editing quiz questions. And by the way, that also includes the ability to add extra quiz questions, right? Create a mini pre-quiz or post-quiz potentially within the simulation itself. But in terms of a larger conversation about how to, let's say, how to work non-graded simulations into your courses, I think that might be something where you can go to the educator's guide on the Labster website. We could provide that as part of the follow-up, or even just talking to your Labster rep and having a conversation about how this can be integrated into a syllabus without the grading component. Because again, all of the quiz questions will be automatically recorded, the score, but in terms of implementing it in your class, the grading is fully and 100% up to you, the instructor.
Okay, and with that, we are just a minute to spare. If anybody has any last questions. All right, well, thank you all. Again, thank you very much, Dr. Eddy van Hunnik, for joining us today and sharing your thoughts. And for those that couldn't join live, JJ and Bonnie Nieves, Mark and Julian, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts as well. Take care, everyone.
Thanks so much, all.